Have you ever been to a place that felt wrong? A place where the very air seems to whisper warnings, but you can't quite make out the words? There's a place like that, hidden deep within the woods, a treehouse long forgotten by time. But this isn't the kind of place where children play. No, this treehouse holds something much darker. It was built decades ago by a man who mysteriously disappeared one cold, stormy night. No one saw him again. Some say he was trying to keep something inside. Others say he unleashed something far worse. And those who've dared to venture there never came back the same. 4 friends decided to test that legend. They thought it was just a story, but they were wrong. What they found inside was beyond their darkest nightmares. They say if you listen closely, you can still hear the whispers. Tonight I'm going to tell you their story, but be warned, this isn't just any story. This one might follow you home. In the forgotten depths of a dense forest, there is a place shrouded in shadow and rumor. It stands silent now, but long ago, the children of the nearby village spoke of it in whispers, daring each other to visit it at night, but none ever did. This place was no ordinary treehouse. No, it was something far darker. The legend goes that it was built by a man who lived alone in the woods, a carpenter by trade, but one with an obsession. No one knew why he built the treehouse or why it stood so far away from his own home. Some said it was a place of refuge. Others said it was a place to hide something he feared. But when he vanished without a trace, the treehouse stood empty, and with each passing year, it became a part of the forest. Until now. It was supposed to be a night of fun for James, Sarah, Eric, and Mia. The 4 friends had known each other since childhood and were finally back in their hometown after years apart. They reminisced about old times and the silly games they played as kids when one memory stood out: the treehouse. None of them had been brave enough to visit it before. But now, as adults, it seemed like the perfect adventure. What could go wrong? They laughed, teased each other about being scared. But beneath the surface, there was a tension none of them could shake. The journey to the treehouse wasn't easy. They had to make their way through overgrown trails, thick with vines and branches that seemed to grab at them as they passed. The forest was unnaturally quiet. No birds, no insects, just the sound of their own footsteps crunching through the undergrowth. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch out and swallow the path ahead. The journey to the treehouse wasn't easy. They had to make their way through overgrown trails, thick with vines and branches that seemed to grab at them as they passed. The forest was unnaturally quiet. No birds, no insects, just the sound of their own footsteps crunching through the undergrowth. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch out and swallow the path ahead. And then, through the trees, they saw it. The treehouse. It stood much as they remembered, but older, darker. Its wooden beams sagged, covered in moss and rot, the roof caving in at odd angles. A rope ladder hung loosely from the platform, swaying slightly, though there was no breeze. It was as if the treehouse was alive, breathing, waiting for them. Something about the place felt wrong. James was the first to climb up, and the others followed, their laughter fading as they reached the top. Inside, the air was thick, stale, as if it hadn't been disturbed in years. Dust hung in the air, and the floor creaked beneath their feet. The carvings on the walls were the first thing they noticed, strange symbols that none of them remembered seeing before. They were deep, jagged marks etched into the wood as if by someone, or something, in pain. Eric was the first to speak. "Guys, this place gives me the creeps," he muttered. But they laughed it off. After all, it was just an old treehouse. What could possibly be scary about that? Sarah, however, wasn't convinced. She ran her fingers over the carvings, feeling the cold, rough texture beneath her skin. "These symbols, I don't think they're just random," she said softly. But before she could finish her thought, a loud creak echoed through the treehouse. The group froze, their eyes darting around the room. "Must be the wind," Mia said, though her voice was shaky. But then they heard it. A soft whisper, barely audible, but unmistakable. It seemed to come from the walls themselves, like the treehouse was trying to speak to them. They exchanged nervous glances. "Did you hear that?" James asked, his voice tight with fear. And then, without warning, the door they had entered through slammed shut, trapping them inside. Panic washed over them as they scrambled to open it, but it wouldn't budge. Eric moved to the corner of the room, where an old chest sat covered in dust. He opened it, revealing the strange collection of items inside. Old toys, a worn-out notebook, and a small mirror cracked down the middle. "This wasn't here before," Eric whispered, staring into the mirror's fractured surface. And as he did, his reflection began to change. It wasn't Eric's face staring back at him. It was something else. Something evil. His smile twisted into a grotesque grin, his eyes dark and hollow. The others stared in horror as Eric's voice changed, deeper, more sinister. Eric's body seemed to move on its own, controlled by something unseen, something dark. He turned to face them, that unnatural grin still plastered on his face. "You've woken it," he said, his voice no longer his own. The others backed away, their minds racing for a way out. But the treehouse was alive now, its walls closing in on them. Sarah found an old journal in the chest, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. She flipped through it, her hands shaking as she read aloud the words scrawled across the pages. The man who built the treehouse had been trying to contain something, a dark entity that fed on fear, something ancient, something that should never have been disturbed. The treehouse groaned and creaked, the very structure seeming to twist and bend as if it was trying to consume them. Eric's eyes glowed with a strange light, and the others realized they had only one chance. Sarah grabbed the cracked mirror and hurled it to the ground. Shattering it into 1,000 pieces, the entity let out a blood-curdling scream, its presence retreating for just a moment. They bolted for the door, now free from whatever held it shut, and scrambled down the rope ladder as the treehouse began to collapse behind them. The sound of wood splintering filled the air as they ran, the ground beneath them shaking as if the forest itself was rejecting them. But even as they reached the safety of the clearing, they could still hear it, the whispers. Faint, but unmistakable. They had escaped, but something followed them. The treehouse was gone, swallowed by the forest, but its presence lingered. The whispers would never leave them, reminding them of what they had unleashed. And now, the legend of the treehouse grows, waiting for the next group of unsuspecting souls to stumble upon it, to awaken what lies dormant within. Be careful where your curiosity leads you. Some places are better left forgotten.
If you liked the video, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to Vale Speak for more dark and thrilling tales. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a story that will keep you up at night.